Hello, welcome to the Bushcraft Medic YouTube channel. I am the Bushcraft Medic. I'm here today to talk a little bit about my first sea of survival, which is a cutting tool. I took my gloves off because first and foremost I want to show you guys this. Those are 10 stitches. That's what happens when you don't pay attention and you're playing with dangerous toys. And that's not to discourage you from doing it, because whenever you play long enough with, a knife or whatever, eventually you're going to get cut. But just be aware. Be aware that you have to be careful. Be aware that you have to be diligent. Always keep your mind that although these are tools, they can bite you. Let's talk about tools for a moment. Let's talk about urban tools real quick. On my day-to-day life, I need a good pocket knife. That's one of my first things, and people see that as a weapon. I see that as a tool. A pocket knife is a tool that you can use for a myriad of different things. I use mine from anything from opening cans to cutting cordage. Hell, just the other day, my girlfriend locked herself out of her car. With the help of that and a pry bar, popped it open. My personal carry, up till recently, and I'm going to do reviews on these individually, was my 511 First Responder Tonto Edge. This thing is extraordinarily thick, extraordinarily strong, well built. I got it on special. It's a $150 knife. I got it on special for like $60. This thing right here is one of the toughest sons of bitches I've ever had in my hand. This thing is an awesome knife. Well worth 2 times the amount that the retail goes for. That right here, well worth its weight in gold. If you have the advantage of getting one of these, I highly suggest it. And I'll go deeper into it. We'll do some tests in another video. Another knife that's been with me for quite a long time. Hold on one second, guys, because I think I misplaced. Oh, there it is. I misplaced another one. This is my Byrd Kara Kara. And I'm not handling my knife so great today because, again, haha, stitches. But this is my Kara Kara. Interesting thing about this Kara Kara, this thing is a Spyderco clone made by Spyderco. So they have basically the exact same shape, the exact same performance, G10 handles. The only real difference is what kind of steel they use. This uses an 8CR 113 MOV, which is a pretty decent steel. This thing I used to use when I spent about two years working in a tree service, maybe 3 years. I was the head man on a tree service. This thing has cut thick ass ropes, been stuck in trees. I've opened cans with it. This thing has never broken a tip. It's never chipped. It's never failed me. It's a much more delicate knife than the 511. This is a brute. It's a much more delicate knife for much more delicate task, but it's still quite robust, quite hardy. Man, I love this knife. If I find more of these, I'm buying more of these, because this is like a $25 knife retail. So when you can spend $30 and get a knife worth $100, that's what it is. This has outdone my Benchmades, my Kershaws. This thing is beast. The Byrd Kara Kara, very cool. BYRD. Another knife that's been with me, and this is still on urban carry, is the original Cold Steel Recon. Now, I just recently took off the black coating because it was already chipped from hundreds of cans that I've opened with this thing. When I was a manager at Arby's, oh, sorry, I shouldn't say that out loud. When I was a manager at a fast food place, and I didn't have a can opener, I went in, it pried open. This thing went through hundreds of cans of au jus and hundreds and hundreds of other hard tasks, cutting rope, chopping stuff. This was my original bad boy. This, when I said, hey, I'm going to get a tough knife, this was it. And the only thing that this has is a minute, I don't know if you can see it. I can't. It has such a tiny little chip in the blade that you can't even see it. I mean, it is really small. This thing is razor sharp, holds an edge, one of the toughest locking mechanisms in the industry. This knife is bad. I really highly recommend it. So, these are some Three good options for a carry knife. I'll go through a review of these individually, kind of tell you more what I think about them at a later point. Each one deserves its own video. But they have all one flaw. And that is that I'm very, very decent with knives, even though the stitches say otherwise. I'm generally really, really good with knives. I can handle them very, very well. I've done a lot of training with how to use them combatively. And the problem is with a pocket knife, when you pull it, no matter how fast you are, you still have to flick it, and you still have to adjust your hand. Even with stuff like the Waves from Emerson and other people, it still takes a lot of time. A knife that has come along is the Ka-Bar Lawman or something like that, and it's almost like a little L-shaped knife that goes on like a holster. You pull it and you just punch with it. That's cool, except that it's then harder to use it like a regular knife. So my daily carry has gone from this to a fixed blade knife. This right here is the BK11 from Ka-Bar. It's an extraordinarily thick piece of steel for such a small knife. It's very simple, plain edge. I like serrated edges for cutting fibers and crap like that, but sometimes you just need a fine edge knife. This right here is a multi-purpose knife that I would use for self-defense in a pinch. This thing is awesome. It's thick. It's sturdy. I got a paracord wrap on it that gives me a good amount of bite, and I normally would wear it like this on my belt down here, so I can strike back, pull in, and go in for hammer fist, because hammer fist, you won't hurt your knuckles. But that's another kind of story. If it was self-defense, it's still small enough where you can, get up real close and you can go ahead and skin with it. You can whittle with it because it's a real nice tight blade that you can control very well. The curve allows for very, very fine work. Fantastic little knife, super tough, easy to keep sharp, very quick on. It comes with a sheath. It has some of my own modifications on it. These right here that you see, the Ranger bands, are basically cut up bike inner tubes. What I did is I took a Tek-Lok, I wrapped some paracord through it to hold it more or less in place, and then I use Ranger bands to make it non-mobile. This gives me several things. I now have cutting tool and I have cordage all in one little thing. Paracord goes a long way in many circumstances. And Ranger bands, the importance of them is they're great little compressions. I can put them together, make slingshots if I had to, or better yet, when I cut myself, I grab myself a small paper towel and a Ranger band to keep constant pressure on it. Coming from a medic, Ranger bands are really fucking rocking. Sorry, I don't mean to cuss. So yeah, this is the BK. This goes with me whether city or outdoors. Awesome, $30, $35, something like that. Added the Tek-Lok to it for another 10 for ease of use and carry, and yeah. Let's talk about, and I'll leave the best one for last. Let's talk about more serious cutting tools. We're talking about building shelter. We're talking about hacking through woods and forests. This right here is probably one of my all-time favorites, and if I had to do a melee combat against a human opponent, this would be top of my list for melee. It is a Cold Steel Kukri Machete Magnum. This is their big boy version. It's a little extended. It's a bit narrower here. You get a lot of good reach. It feels very nice in the hands. It maneuvers quite well, quite strong. Takes an edge very easily. It comes dull, pretty dull from the company. I put a field edge on it with the file, and then I kind of ran it through a whetstone. It cuts paper, but you have to give it a little effort because when I hack, I don't want to have such a fine edge that it chips it. This thing right here, you can use it kind of like an axe, but really what it's designed for is saplings. It does go through very well on saplings, vines, things of that nature. Excellent tool for that. Did I just notice a burr on here? Always maintain your tools. If you don't maintain your tools, they will not maintain you. So I need to go back and do a better cleanup on this one because I just found a little burr and maybe a little bit more grit on it than I thought. Maybe I didn't clean it for my last go out. This right here, really tough. The problem is that I live up in an area that's a bit more heavy woods. I cut down heavy wood with this, and you can, but this is a very slick, light machete. very thin, goes through stuff very well, but not so great to supplement as an axe. And I don't have an axe because an axe is an additional weight that I didn't want to have to carry. So I'm going to put this aside. By the way, this is my own sheath that I made for it. I'm learning to make Kydex sheaths, and this is a PVC prototype, much better than the Cordura sheath it comes with. Caution, make sure you grab it real low before you pull out, because otherwise you might end up with stitches. This is not the one that cut me, by the way, but this thing is pretty nice too. Oh, also on the side, I got some Ranger Wrap cord, so I have plenty of cordage. And again, for the sake of additional grippiness, I put some Ranger bands on it. The rubber adds a nice solid grip to it, so you don't feel like it's ever going to slip. Fantastic, fantastic. Good light machete. If you're going through jungle or going through something, I like that. The Latin American one is nice too, but I like the Kukri machete mostly because it also doubles as a fighting weapon, which I like. This right here, this little bastard cut me. This is my Cold Steel Kukri machete. It's actually much thicker, much heavier, and yet still shorter than my Cold Steel. What does this mean? You get more power on the slice. This doubles as my axe. This is now my go-to machete whenever I go out to the bush because it's smaller, doesn't get in the way as much. It is heavier. If I was going through a long trek and it was viney, I'd take the Cold Steel. But here, this is the beast. It chops. It bites really good into good wood. Very, very tough feeling machete. It's been fantastic. Also pretty affordable. The Cold Steel was maybe $25, which is a lot cheaper than this. This was about $60. But this is a different kind of tool. It's really for that harder wood. Still, you can use this as a weapon if necessary. It has kind of a rubberized handle. I didn't feel that so much. Like, it slipped on me a little bit. So again, I cut some Ranger bands, put it on, gives it a slightly more grippy feel. I like that. And again, it gives me another resources. I can tuck stuff into it or cut this for compression bandages if I had to. I like the grippy Ranger bands. I'm a big advocate of them. So this is my K-bar. You can see it's quite thick. The angle's a bit deeper. So again, when you chop, you get a lot more force on that short stroke, particularly when you're just hacking wood. Also, good log splitter. You put it on, you already have your hand down at an angle. So you can hold like this and not take all the impact being transferred directly back. Instead, it'll transfer, will diffuse into your handle. And so you can baton with it pretty well. I like this. Now, last but certainly not least, this is my default, and this is what I chose as my #1 bushcraft knife. And I will do a further review on this later. This is my Becker BK2 Companion. I went ahead and made it my own. I customized it a bit. As you can see, it doesn't have the black blade. It's kind of a short knife. Fantastically thick knife. This thing is super rockin' hardcore. Very, very manageable. It handles very well in hand. It's very light. As far as because of feel, it's a heavy blade. It just feels light, and that's the power of a good center of gravity on a blade. I've batoned with this thing through some good thick wood, and it does it outstandingly. You know, it's good high carbon steel. It's 5 inches of a blade, 10.5 inches long. I'm not sure on the weight, but it is a 1/4 inch thick. Comes with a very nifty hardcore sheath. Again, I've modified it with the same tech lock. This is a larger tech lock because it goes on my web belt. Again, it has some cordage on it, and then it has some additional kit pieces that I hold on via Ranger bands. That is my statement for cutlery tools. I show you all these because a knife is a tool, and like any tool, you should apply the right tool for the right job. You know, it does very little good to be carrying this around the city. This would probably get you in trouble when you could do something as inconspicuous as the Kara, or maybe slightly more conspicuous because it goes on your belt, but still very small, acceptable BK11. You know, I love my BK11. Hell, I love my little Boker, and this thing's a pretty neat little knife too. This is my neck knife I carry with me all the time, but those would do me very little good if I'm trying to build a shelter. If I'm trying to build a shelter. Hey, I want this, or I want this. I want something heavy, thick, something I can bash with, something I can abuse. Think about your tools. There's tons of other options. Ontario knife machete is very nice. Of course, if you have the money to spend on, like I think it's an easy, $300, whatever. Hey, go ahead. But I believe in high value. The stuff I have here is extremely high value. That K-bar is phenomenal for the cost. That Cold Steel, phenomenal for the cost. I think I paid $55 for my Recon. That knife's worth 3 times that. This is a $60 knife that does a $300 job. I mean, this is bad. So, each one will get its own individual review at some point. But for now, this is Bushcraft Medic out.